This program, while curated to help you improve your health, contains general advice and should not replace the individual advice of your medical practitioner.
I think I was in hospital 40 times in those 5 to 6 years. I guess I know that it's not real and that those platforms are really highlight reels.
In life, it's normal to have ups and downs. But what do we do when we get stuck? I've always been fascinated by the healing journey. Why do some people get better while others fail to make the shift? Welcome to the Patient Series, where we explore the stories of 4 patients with complex health conditions to understand their journey to healing and how they made their shift.
We all have barriers to overcome.
The biggest thing that I discovered was the link between gut health and mental health. I deserve to be healthy and happy.
I'm Katherine Maslen, and this is The Shift. Welcome to the Patient Series, where we explore the stories of 4 patients with complex health conditions to understand their journey to healing and how they made their shift. My name is Katherine Maslen. I'm a naturopath, author, the founder and head of Shift Clinics, and of course your host of this mini-series and the Shift podcast. In season 1 of The Shift, we deep dove into the fascinating field of gut health. You heard the very best from 24 world experts in gut and surrounding health. You discovered the latest in microbiome research and explored the many facets of digestive health. In the expert series, you heard the stories and expertise of each of our amazing experts from season 1 of The Shift. In this short series, we're going to spend some time with the patients that have gone through their journey to make the shift. I'm going to delve into their personal healing journeys to understand what the process of making the shift looked like for them. It is my hope that from these stories, you can get some insights and inspiration to help you make your next big shift too. In this episode of the Shift Patient Series, we have Hayley. Hayley's main health issues have been chronic asthma, immune deficiency, allergies, skin problems, and bloating. With our early years of development being so important, I asked Hayley to share with me her story around birth and infanthood.
I was born in Victoria and born 6 weeks early and flown down to Melbourne. I'm not too sure what was going on at the time, but I imagine that probably didn't start things off very well for me and my health.
So you were born 6 weeks prematurely, removed from your mother. Do you know if you were born naturally or caesarean?
Naturally.
So what was the first time in your life that you had health problems?
I think I was 4 when I started getting asthma, and it was severe very quickly. So I spent most of my childhood, I had time in hospital.
So do you remember being in hospital when you were that little?
Yeah, I remember always needing blood tests done and lung x-rays and antibiotics and prednisolone and other steroids to get me well, and lots of oxygen as well.
Yeah. How long did that carry on for, like the hospitalizations, antibiotics, steroids type thing?
So it would have started around 4 to 6, and then from 6 to 12, that was the time where I think I was in hospital 40 times in those 5 to 6 years, and that was just hospitalisation for 1 or more nights, not outpatient visits to hospital or doctor's surgeries.
So say that again.
40 times in 5 to 6 years.
Far out. And that was between like the ages of 6 and 12. I mean, that's pretty massive. How do you think that that impacted on your childhood?
I think that the impacts of missing out and feeling that I couldn't do the things that other kids could do was massive. And the stress of going back to school and not knowing if my friends were still my friends and that kind of thing.
What else was happening? So do you remember when you were little if you had any problems with food or eating or any other symptoms besides the asthma and lung stuff?
I don't remember any other symptoms, but I know that we ate a really traditional country Australian diet, so lots of gluten and dairy and sugar. And one thing that I always think of now, knowing that dairy doesn't work well for me and my asthma, is that the medicine was always crushed up and put in ice cream. So to be having that dose of dairy and sugar while I was trying to get well, and I was also encouraged to have a lot of dairy in my diet for calcium reasons because my bone density was affected by the medication. So I think that's interesting that cycle, what was happening wasn't going to break that cycle.
So it's almost like the medicine that they were giving you was making you sicker in a way.
Yeah, I know that the medication was causing inflammation. I always looked puffy and the bone density, and it also caused a lot of skin issues. So I think when I was 10 or 11, I was referred down to Melbourne to a respiratory specialist, and that's when he started saying, okay, so the asthma's not improving, the skin issues are here, the bone density issues are here, and also look at the emotional impacts as well.
Yeah, that's huge. And I guess this is that whole not looking at things holistically. And obviously you needed the medication to save your life because asthma is pretty life-threatening, especially when you're at that age. But at the same time, it wasn't really looking at what was causing it, right? And in fact, by encouraging, it's almost like you needed the steroids to save your life, but then that's caused low bone density, which has caused them to get you to eat more dairy, which has then exacerbated the asthma, and you end up in this loop, yeah? That's kind of carried on now, even still into your adult life. So it sounds like right at the very start that those foundations were set, like there was so many years of poor foundations that it can take a little while to heal from that. What happened when you went into high school?
When I was in high school, my skin issues continued and hormonal issues as well, so painful periods. And so I was on the pill for the painful periods. And my asthma did improve from seeing the respiratory specialist. And what was interesting was that he was recommending a higher dose of the medication, but for shorter periods of time, so not the prolonged use that I was used to. And I then went to Switzerland on exchange for 12 months, and my asthma was really, really good. So we were thinking, is it air quality being out of the childhood home? But my parents had done everything that they could in terms of getting rid of carpet, no pets, anything that was suggested, they were trying that. But just before I came home, I had a massive asthma attack and was in hospital for at least a week. So that was really interesting because I wondered if it was the stress of going back home or even though Switzerland is known for its good quality air and healthy living, that hadn't solved the problem.
So that's a really good example of stress exacerbating stuff. Can you think of another time in your life where you've been stressed and your symptoms have gotten worse?
I do find if I have a lot going on in terms of I've often worked full-time and studied and maybe had a part-time job on the side of that as well. And so at busy times, I can get my asthma does seem to come back, but that would be the best example of it.
Reviews help us know that we're hitting the mark with what you need and help us to shape future seasons. I'd really appreciate it if you could take a few moments to leave us a review. I would love to know what you think.
The shift!
So what other things did you experience through high school? So tell me a little bit more about the skin problems and the period problems that you started getting. When did you first notice that?
When I was 11 or 12, acne started, and I also had acne all over my upper chest as well. And I've also had on and off almost like an eczema or just all kinds of different breakouts. And that has continued until about 5 years ago. I would always be going to the doctor with some kind of breakout, maybe under my arms, or a psoriasis type of skin condition around the elbows or ankles.
How many rounds of antibiotics do you think you might have had in your life?
It would have to be in excess of 50 rounds of antibiotics.
What other medications have you had throughout your life?
So prednisolone was the main one to treat asthma, which I believe is a steroid tablet, and then steroid inhalers and Ventolin, and of course all of the antibiotics and the pill.
Did you ever have any digestive symptoms?
I had bloating for as long as I can remember. So I can remember at least maybe 7 or 8 years old and feeling bloated.
So you went through high school, skin, period problems. What happened when you entered the workforce?
When I started working, and this was while I was still at school, I knew that my body had been through a lot with asthma and skin, and I knew that I wanted to be able to exercise and be fit. And it was this idea of being fit and able to run and do those things that was really at the front of my mind. And so I've always invested, since I've been working, invested money into my health and fitness. And so I got a personal trainer, told them about my asthma, and I also started buying those supplements in the chemist. And so I was looking mainly at skin at that time and wanting to improve skin, hair and nails type of stuff.
Yeah, which is often the case, is that it can sometimes be cosmetic reasons. Why do you think that is, that people can put up with internal stuff, so things like, bloating or fatigue or that type of thing, but when it becomes something physical and external, they're more likely to take action?
I think because society has such strong views about what's normal or the way that we should look, and particularly in those younger years when you're maybe making new friends and looking for a partner and those kind of things, it's seen as a barrier to a good life, the way that we look in some ways. Yeah.
One of the things that we're talking about, and that'll be in the shift, is this conversation about influencers and health influencers in particular on Instagram that have perfect, well, it would seem on the outside, have perfect lives, perfect bodies, perfect makeup, hair all the time, and that they're spruiking health. Do you follow anyone like that?
I have followed people like that, but oftentimes I look at what they're doing and I know that won't work for me. And that's one of the biggest things that I've always tried to follow, is when I read about something or learn about something, is to have a think about, is this likely to work for me and my body based on what I already know? And then if I do decide to try something, really focus on, is this working and do I feel good? And when I see what they're doing, oftentimes I already know that won't feel good for me.
How does it make you feel seeing these accounts with people with perfect bodies, doing yoga on the beach, drinking green smoothies, all of that stuff?
I guess I know that it's not real, and that those platforms are really highlight reels. Yeah. And for me, the importance of working with someone like you and the health practitioners that I have worked with in the last 5 years, I've always chosen to work with the best people that I can find and afford. And so that's really important in, I guess, taking their advice rather than what I'm seeing from Instagram. And it used to be, say, 10, 15 years ago, it was those magazines that were feeding us the same stuff.
Why do you think it's important to see somebody that actually is qualified and that can take you on a journey rather than just sort of, following a diet that's sort of promoted, I guess, for anyone?
we know that everybody has a different genetics or life experiences that have led them to where they are. And so having that professional advice is really important to ensure that it is tailored for you and what your body's been through and what's going to work for it.
When was the moment in your life when you realised that diet was a factor in all of this?
I started seeing a naturopath 5 years ago, and she actually spoke at an information session for the boot camp that I was doing. And she explained all of the symptoms that I knew that I had. And I went home and I read these blogs about gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free. I didn't know at the time that might be called paleo or something similar. And I actually wrote a list of 65 symptoms that I was experiencing. Everything from the severe, such as asthma or period pain, to the little things like sneezing more than other people or having muscle twitches and things like that. And she said to me, she worked with me for a while providing supplements and just making small changes to the diet because I hadn't tried gluten or dairy sugar-free things before. And then after a couple of months, she had almost like a detox supplements that I was going to take, and I was going to try this gluten, dairy, sugar-free as much as possible for 6 weeks. And 2 weeks in, I lost 9 kilos, and I was only going for very short, brisk walks. And I felt lighter, and the sneezing had stopped straight away. The coughing was so much less, and the little niggly pains everywhere had gone away. And I knew that it wasn't fat. I knew that it was this water and inflammation that had just cleared up within such a short period of time.
It's amazing, isn't it? The body, like how quickly things can change. Can you think of another time in your health journey where things have changed really, really quickly for you?
I think when I started the journey here with you, that was another time that my body very quickly lost weight, felt good. My energy levels maybe from the supplements, but also from the diet, very quickly bounced back, and I was able to wake up feeling rested and have energy through the day. And that would have also been within the first 2 weeks.
Do you think it's important that people do look at taking medicines in addition to diet if they want to kind of accelerate their healing?
I think so, because if you can support your body in those early stages with detoxing, and I don't like to use the word detoxing, but essentially that's what your body's doing, and supporting its natural processes of detoxing, and then also the energy so that you have the energy to cook nutritious meals and get out for a walk. You're just making it easier for yourself and speeding up that process.
Have you listened to season 1 of The Shift? If you're enjoying the Patient series, then you'll love season 1, where we deep dive into the field of gut health with 24 world leaders in this area. Head back to your podcast app and go to episode 1. It's a great place to start. What did you learn on your journey about toxins or things that you were exposed to or eating that you just shouldn't have been?
In terms of the diet, I immediately noticed a difference taking out dairy in terms of my breathing and coughing and sneezing. With gluten and grains, I noticed a big difference with bloating straight away and not having any cramps and things like that. Another interesting symptom that I had was if I would go out for lunch and have a sandwich or any form of bread really, I would come back with blurry vision. And so I'm not too sure if that was blood sugar or something, but as soon as I noticed my vision clearing up, and also energy through the afternoon. So they were the big things with diet. With other toxins and things, I recently, maybe 6 months ago, got the Zazen water filter, and just knowing that I was drinking really good quality water has naturally improved my ability to drink lots of water. That's been really good. And makeup and all those personal products and plastics, I've really made a big effort around the house to clean those up. I feel that that's not something that you really notice the difference in terms of how you feel or things like that, but I just know that internally it's doing the good work.
Tell me what happens if you have dairy now.
Over Christmas, say if I have dairy and it starts out as a little bit and then I have more, for the first few days I'm fine, I think because of the work that I've done around my health. But after a while I will start sneezing and have a really bad cough and sinus congestion as well.
I think that's really important for people to realise too, that sometimes it takes that accumulation. It's like your bucket can only handle so much before it then overflows, and then you sort of get these different type of symptoms as well. How much do you think the emotional wellness side of things feeds into your health?
I think it's really important, and again, it's something that we can overlook and think just because I'm not thinking I am stressed doesn't mean that the body isn't experiencing stress. And so I've really spent a lot of time, particularly in the last 12 months, focusing on doing those practices like meditation or going for a walk, journaling, even when I don't think that I'm stressed, as a prevention as well as to keep things going along. I think that it would probably have been one of the factors with that cycle that I was on in childhood with asthma, because I wouldn't have been experiencing very good gut health to start with, and then to add stress into the mix, I can see that it would have made things more difficult for me to heal. And I think as well with stress and gut health, I didn't realise that we also have the bacteria in our mouth that's linked to the gut, and the dental problems that I've had as well. Even though I've always been as careful as I can with brushing and flossing and going to the dentist, I've had severe dental problems.
Tell me about the dental problems.
Yeah, so when I was still in childhood, so primary school at some stage, I think I had fillings then, and I was brushing perfectly, flossing, and my little sister wasn't as careful as I was, and she had no issues with her teeth. And then I obviously was on the pill, and I had braces and more fillings in teenage years. And now I'm experiencing gum problems as well. And so I'm seeing a specialist for the gums, and I'm also seeing a dentist who is taking a holistic look at my health as well. And I think that combination of stress, the pill, the antibiotics has led to the environment in my mouth that regardless of the amount of brushing that I'm doing, I'm not able to experience good dental health.
That's really interesting. And it's thinking about like the microbiome, that we've got it in the gut, we've got it in our mouth, on our skin as well. So all of the skin issues that you were getting to, which is linked to gut immunity, but also like skin barrier function. But also all the antibiotics you were taking wouldn't just have damaged the microbiome on the gut. It would have been skin microbiome, mouth microbiome, everything. So that's really interesting. And we know from, if you look at some of the healthiest populations on earth that live the longest, their dental health is a good indicator of actually how healthy the population is. So it's really, really interesting. So you've been on a healing journey for about 5 years. What's happened in that time?
In that time, the biggest thing that has happened is that I used to have a cold or flu maybe 3 times a year, and I've had 1 or 2 in the past 5 years, and the severity of them has been very little compared to what used to happen. And with that, it would oftentimes lead to a chest infection or antibiotics to try to prevent a chest infection. And so my asthma is also much better because I'm not fighting off colds and flu. And I've learnt so much about my body, and I'm always looking out for symptoms and trying to take a look at what might be going on. And I always listen to my gut instinct now. So if I have a craving for pomegranate or beetroot or something strange that I don't often have in my diet, I just listen to it and know that there must be a reason for it. And I always feel better for that, just listening to my body.
I love that. And it's that whole intuitive eating that actually inherently we all know what we need, but the problem is that there's so many layers of stuff on top of that that prevents us from recognizing it or trusting ourselves or going with that gut feeling. And it's interesting that that's such an old saying, like, I have a gut feeling about something, I can feel it in my stomach. And it just goes down to how important that gut is to everything else that's going on as well. What would you say that 29-year-old Hayley knows that 18-year-old Hayley didn't?
I know now that diet does play a factor in my health, and that while there are and were many people who had the best of intentions, that I was reading that oats and milk and things like that were okay, and healthy options for me, but I now know what the real healthy options are for me.
When you're having an asthma period or you're in that sickness, how does it affect you?
Not with the asthma. I'm really lucky that I'm not afraid of having asthma. I just see it as something that I take in my stride and move on with. So I'm able to work while I have asthma and just let people know around me that I'm experiencing increased asthma symptoms at the moment, and if needed, I might need a trip to the hospital. What it does impact, though, is my energy levels, my sleep, and it interrupts my exercise as well. And I find that really challenging because when I don't have the energy to cook and eat well, get to the farmer's market and things like that, and then interrupting the exercise routine, that it does take me a little bit of time to get back into things.
When you were really little, you didn't know a lot about it. There was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty about it. Whereas now you're sort of like, well, this is something that's happened to me. I'm taking it in my stride, and it's okay. It's going to be all right. How did you get to that place?
I think because the evidence was that every time that I was in hospital, I would always walk out. So I just focused on the fact that things would always improve. And I think now with being on a health journey is that I've only once or twice had to tell someone I'm experiencing asthma to a point at the moment where I might need a trip to the hospital. So instead of that being 4 times a year, it's been 1 to 2 times in 5 or 6 years.
Excellent. When was the last time you were in hospital?
The last time I had an overnight stay was when I was 16. And then the last time I needed to go to outpatients, I think, would have been in 2014. So just when I was starting with supplements and natural health.
Wonderful. So and this is where we talk about that the journey never ends. So even once all the symptoms are gone, there's other stuff, and there's growth, and we're doing this thing. So at the moment, most symptoms are pretty good. Asthma's flaring up a little bit. Do you think that the asthma will ever go completely?
I think it will, because it continues to improve each year, and I continue to learn more about it and what does and doesn't work for me. And I think in my adult life, I've moved around a lot and had a lot of change. And so because of those interruptions to routine, I'm not currently at the place that I would like to be with my diet and looking after myself.
It's good to hear you say that, because if you think you will, you will, is usually my take on it. What else do you think you need to do to keep working on your health from now onwards?
I think getting more consistency in every aspect of my life, a bit more stability will then lead to more consistency with diet and exercise and self-care, and including those stress management types of self-care.
Yeah. What have been some of the roadblocks that you've come up against when you've been trying to heal yourself and get better?
Time, and everyone is poor on time. So I think for me, at first I thought I had to do all of this perfectly, and that it meant I would never have gluten, dairy, sugar or alcohol ever again. And I pretty soon learnt that that wasn't possible, and that wasn't, it also wasn't a helpful thought either to think that that was the case.
So probably an interesting question is, and what other people want to know, is do you have to be a purist to maintain your health?
No, absolutely not. And that's something that I think is really important for people to know, is that we all have barriers and obstacles to overcome on our health journey. And when we're doing this, we don't have to do it perfectly to still see amazing results.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You can see the progression. It's getting better and better, and you just got to kind of keep working on those last few things. How important do you think that gut health's been in your healing journey?
I think it's been the most important thing, because the more that I learn about gut health and how it flows onto other areas, the more that I realise that these symptoms have all stemmed from somewhere. And so beginning with that foundation is really important.
And knowing what you know with what you've learned through the naturopath you've seen and the research you've done and obviously your own journey, can you see the progression of what happened to you throughout your life and how you ended up here?
Yeah, and every day, every time I read an article or I listen to a podcast, another piece of that puzzle falls into place, and I can see that it all led to here. But it's empowering because I know that it means that as I go along this journey that I'm working out where I might need to look.
I love this last piece from Hayley. The discovery part of the wellness journey is so important. By gathering the most information that we can on how our bodies work and understanding the impact of our choices, we can really begin to make that shift. You might have remembered that Hayley was born prematurely, and I want to talk a little bit about what that could mean. It's really important to know that the weight of a baby at birth is correlated with their health outcomes later in life. The lower the birth weight a baby is born, the more it impacts on their health long term. In Australia, 6.5% of babies are currently born low birth weight. This is a really important topic and one that needs to be explored more, as there are environmental factors that can contribute to low birth weight babies and therefore their health later in life. As I mentioned, birth weight is a key indicator of infant health and a determinant of a baby's chance of survival and good health. A baby can be small due to being born early or due to a range of factors, including pathological reasons. Low birth weight is a risk factor for neurological and physical disabilities, with the risk of adverse outcomes increasing the lower the birth weight. The health effects of low birth weight can continue into adulthood. Research has also found that an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, as well as metabolic and cardiovascular diseases have been found in adults that were born with low birth weights. I became really interested in this area when a dear friend of mine, Dwan Vilsons, brought it to my attention years ago. Dwan is a fellow naturopath and recently completed her PhD in environmental epidemiology, exploring environmental factors and the relationship with birth weight. What she found in her research was a positive correlation between the amount of green space in the mother's residential suburb and the baby's estimated birth weight. What this means is that as the amount of green space went up, the estimated birth weight of the babies increased. She also found a relationship between dry and dead vegetation and bare earth. As all of these factors went up, the birth weight of the babies came down. This made me really think about the impact of our city living on the health of the population And Dwan aims for her research to change the way that we think about city planning, helping to re-green our living spaces for the health of our future children. There are so many factors when it comes to our health and wellness, and if you've listened to The Shift so far, I'm sure that a few have identified with you. Individualised medicine is really about understanding which parts are most important for you and taking that information and making meaningful change in these areas. This is something that we do every day at Shift, and if you need any help, please head to theshiftclinic.com where you can book a discovery and diagnosis session with one of our amazing naturopaths. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Patient series. I'm so grateful to have been able to share these stories with you. If you want more, be sure to go back and listen to the main series of Season 1 of The Shift if you haven't already. We're currently producing Season 2 and it's going to be even better, so be sure to stay on our radar by subscribing, following us on Instagram and Facebook, and joining our Facebook community at theshiftclinic.com/group. See you soon. Hormones are the number one thing that will make you feel crazy. Issues like weight gain, anxiety, depression, sleep, and even bloating are all impacted by our hormones.
I'm seeing the evolution of malfunction of the female body.
We're talking about women's hormones, we're talking about autoimmunity, and let's talk about the connection between the two there.
Season 2 of The Shift is coming soon and I can't wait. In this season of The Shift, I'm going to deep dive into everything related to hormonal health.
Turns out that being on your period doesn't make you weaker, it actually makes you stronger. Oh, whoa, that's so opposite of what I was taught growing up.
Does sex leave you feeling rejuvenated, ecstatic, transformed, and like it changed your life?
I would like to call to arms for women around the world to know that their intuition isn't lying to them.
Our hormones, as I think most women probably have experienced, are everything.
Make sure you subscribe right now and follow us on Instagram at The Shift Clinic so you don't miss a thing.